You are now tuned into the Anxious Ambition podcast, where you'll be hearing raw and unfiltered conversations with those who struggle with mental illness but refuse to let that get in the way of them achieving their dreams. Our hope is that by hearing their stories, you are inspired to do more. Here are their stories.
Anxious
Ambition.
Welcome back to another episode of the Anxious Ambition podcast. I'm your host, Justin Allen, and today's episode is going to be a little bit different. It's actually not going to be with any guests, but it's just going to be a solo show with me, and I'm going to be answering some of your questions that we've gotten from Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, email, and just spend a little bit of time today answering some of your questions, a little bit more laid back of an episode. If you guys have any questions of your own, whether it's pertaining to mental health, anxiety, depression, entrepreneurship, law of attraction, self-help, anything really, if you think I could answer it or be of some assistance to you, feel free to ask. Before we get into this, though, I do want to preface this episode by saying that, I am not a professional in this space. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychiatrist, not a therapist. I am not licensed in any of that. So everything you hear today is strictly my opinion, based on experiences of myself, of others, and what's worked for me, what's worked for other people. So please, if you are truly struggling and it's getting to the point where, you have a hard time living your life on a daily basis, please go seek help, whether it's from a therapist, a doctor, anything like that. You shouldn't be afraid to go get professional help if you do need it. But the purpose of this video is, just to help you, get through everything, help you make anxiety an easier thing to deal with for yourself and others. Some of these questions are about, how to help your friends and things like that. So if you do have any of your own questions, feel free to send them. You can actually email me too at, it's going to be justin@anxiousambition.com. And let's get right into the show. So I got a bunch of questions here, so we're going to see how many we can answer and go from there. So first question is an anonymous question. It says, what are the best ways to help a friend with anxiety? Sometimes they will have mental breakdowns and I don't know exactly what to do. Now, this is a tough question because every single person is different. And the first thing I would tell you to do is next time that person is a little more level-headed, not dealing with a panic attack or maybe a massive bout of depression, whatever the case may be, talk to this person when they're a little bit more grounded and just tell them that, first off, you want to tell them that you truly care about them and that you want to help them in any way you can. So at this point, you need to listen. They might tell you, hey, it would really help me if you got me a glass of water, if you put on some music, if you leave me alone. You got to respect that too. Everyone's mental illness is different and how we suffer with it is different, how we deal with it is different, how we recover. So it's truly just being receptive and respecting what they have. So if they tell you, hey, next time I'm feeling this way, like it would be really helpful if you, maybe just sat on the couch with me, maybe just sit there, maybe you don't even talk. Maybe they want you to talk. Some people find peace in speaking and having a conversation. It kind of gets them out of that frame, that mindset of, anxiety, depression, whatever it is. So that could be helpful as well. So another thing too is I would recommend doing some research on your own. So for example, for me, I suffer with anxiety, depression, OCD, ADHD. And if I was trying to help me, like I would do as much research as I could and figuring out, okay, well, one, what are these things so that I can understand it a little bit better? Because I will tell you that it's from, coming from someone that deals with this stuff, it's hard to explain it to someone that doesn't deal with it themselves. Now, it can sound kind of foreign. Some of your symptoms might sound a little crazy. So if you can actually do some research and realize that this is perfectly normal with what they're dealing with, and even that, just doing the research and putting in the time, it's so helpful for that other person because now they know they have an ally in you, and you can be there for them, even if it's not holding their hand or helping them directly, but even you just being someone that cares will be a huge help to them. So, kind of to sum it up, ask them what will help them. Ask them, how can I help? I want to help. Let them know you care. Let them know that you're there for them, that you understand, that you respect what they're going through, and it's not just um, you're not going to belittle the situation. Like, you realize that, okay, they're, maybe they're dealing with a panic attack, like that's a serious thing. You're not just going to walk up to them and tell them, hey, relax, hey, just ignore it, it's just anxiety, whatever. Like, knowing that you're going to be there for them and truly respecting it is going to be very helpful for them. So respect what they say, respect what they tell you, what they want. Also, respect to, if they want you to leave them alone. I know people that just want to be left alone. Sometimes for myself, it's like, hey, like, I just want my space, and people may not understand that, but it's like, hey, the best thing you could do for me is to give me 15 minutes by myself. So, and another thing too, obviously, if you said mental breakdowns, so I don't know exactly what that may be. But if it's something very serious where you feel like they're in a really, really bad place, it might be hard, but maybe contacting their parents, contacting a loved one, maybe the school counselor, a doctor, or something like that. Let them know too, like, hey, I'm here to help you too. So if you really need help, like, I can help you get there, because if you're in that, poor mental state, it might be hard for you to concentrate and, to go through with getting the help you need. So if you're able to actually help them do that too, that's going to be very helpful. So hope that answers your question. So the next question we got here is, what are the best tips or advice you have to avoid/minimize anxious thoughts at night? Now, many of us who suffer from anxiety do have a hard time sleeping, because, when you're laying in bed, you don't have any more distractions. You don't have anything that you can't really avoid those anxious thoughts anymore. They're just there. It's you, your bed, and those thoughts. So the way I look at this is, how can we get you in the best state to fall asleep quickly and in a healthy way, and also kind of how to sort those anxious thoughts before bed. So there's a couple of things that I'd recommend doing. Well, the first thing, don't try to just drawn it out. Like, if you're having a hard time sleeping because of the anxiety, don't just like reach for alcohol. It may help you fall asleep, but the sleep quality you're getting is absolutely terrible. Also, that next day you're going to feel even more anxious because of the hangover, or the withdrawals from the alcohol. So please don't do that. Don't make a habit of that. We can all agree that alcohol is not the answer here. So a couple things that I would recommend doing. So if you got a lot on your mind and you're really anxious about some certain things, take some time. Well, one, keep a journal next to your bed, so on the nightstand, and physically write out everything that's going on in your head, everything that's making you anxious, everything that's stressing you out. Write it out. Putting those thoughts on paper really helps kind of detach it, help it get out of your head. You can actually look at it visually and be like, okay, this is what's bothering me, and then you can actually think about, how can I actually fix these issues. And if something's making you anxious or stressed that you have zero control over, you need to realize that it's just that, you can't control it at all. So I'll give you an example. For me, like, we know with work right now, things are really stressful and I get anxious before bed. And the way I kind of compartmentalize it is by thinking through what things are stressing me out and which things I can actually change. So if there's things that I can do better to make myself feel better, I'm going to do that. But if there's things that are stressing me out that I have no control over, it's easier said than done, but trying to just realize, hey, I can't do anything about this. And that's going to be helpful as well. So journaling before bed, if you have to use your phone to, journal, that's fine too. But just, there is something special about physically, writing on, pen and paper, writing out everything, and you'll be able to visually see it. But if, anything's better than nothing, but using your phone, use your phone for it is fine. But that gets to my next point is what we need to do is get ourselves ready for bed. So if before bed we're typically on our phones, watching TV, on our iPads, consuming a bunch of stuff, our brains are still going to be extremely activated. All that blue light from your technology is going to keep you stimulated, and you're really not going to be in a good state to fall asleep. So when you're laying in bed, your brain's just moving like a mile, moving really quickly. So one thing I would recommend doing is try to get off of your phones, or at least make sure all the blue light filters are changed where you're not getting as bombarded with blue light about an hour before bed. Ideally, if that's hard for you, let's start with a half hour. Half hour before bed, put your phone down. Maybe before bed you journal for a little bit. That way you kind of detach yourself from all the stimulation and helps you to fall asleep faster. A couple other things too is I want to give you some ideas of things that can help you fall asleep as well. So a nice cup of tea, maybe some chamomile tea, something that again relaxes you, eases your mind, um, kind of has a very good calming effect. It's not going to knock you out, which is really nice. So it's just going to help you, ease your stress. So also another idea you can use that, if you're dealing with a bout of anxiety, making a cup of tea, some chamomile, lavender, something like that. Nothing with caffeine, obviously, but something that can help ease your mind a little bit. So doing some chamomile tea can help. Another option you could do is if you've got some lavender essential oils, putting a couple of drops under your pillow, having, smelling it a bunch before you go to bed. The goal here is trying to quiet our mind, quiet our thoughts, and just getting ourselves prepared for sleep. I don't think the answer is, you didn't hear me say, hey, just go take an Ambien and fall asleep, just put you out. Will that help? Yeah, but we all know that that can be pretty habit forming. So, there could be a time and a place for stuff like that, but sleep medications isn't exactly the answer. What we want to do is try to approach this holistically as we can. So, making sure that we are exercising so that we deplete some of that energy. We just have to do our best. Anxiety before, when you're about to fall asleep is super, super common. So just doing all you can to quiet our brains, exhaust the energy that we have throughout the day, especially if you're someone that's working from home right now. You might not be as active as you once were. So you've got all this pent up energy. So, taking a walk after work or getting some exercise in on your lunch break or after work. We need to make sure we still prioritize energy expenditure so that we are able to, fall asleep like we're supposed to. So, a couple tips, right? Using the lavender oil, journaling before bed, having a cup of tea. I think another good one would be, we talked about on this channel before, magnesium. We really should be taking magnesium every day. Most people are deficient in it, but if you have a pretty decent dose of it before bed, that'll help too. Calms your mind, calms your body, like literally relaxes your muscles, and it'll help you fall asleep. So I hope that helps you out. Um, Sleep is a tricky thing, but it's super important. The answer isn't let's just stay up late and not try to sleep, because then you're going to be sleep deprived and you're going to be anxious, and then you're going to be in that, it's going to be a vicious cycle. So hope that helps answers your question. That question was also anonymous. So, okay. So our next question, law of attraction question. Cool. How to focus on law of attraction to bring a more positive outlook into your life. And this question comes from Matt. So law of attraction can really help with positivity, in a sense that once you put complete trust in the universe, God, whatever you want to, label the higher being, once you put trust that what you're trying to manifest in your life is coming to you, that can ease a lot of that stress and the negative thoughts and help you put a positive spin on things. And what I mean is, for example, let's use us buying this house. Me and my wife bought this house this year, and it was tough. If you're in the market right now, you realize that, houses are moving really quickly and things like that. But one thing I was manifesting during this time was, our dream starter home. And I didn't have anything specifically in mind. It's just, you know, I would just manifest, I'm happy and I'm happy and healthy, and I'm enjoying living in our beautiful starter home that's perfect for us, and it's got everything we need for us to start a family and entertain friends and all that. And I didn't really try to pick a specific thing because I put my trust in the universe for it to come to us. So, we made a couple offers on a couple houses, and we didn't get the house. So, happened once, happened twice. And even when we made an offer on this house, we weren't really sure if we were going to get it. But when we were declined the first couple of times, it's easy to just go into a negative state. Be like, what the hell? Why aren't we getting these houses? We love that house. It felt perfect for us. But truthfully, the entire time, yeah, I might be upset for like a couple seconds, like just that initial, like, oh, damn, I wish we got that house. But then immediately, because I have so much trust in my manifestations and in the universe, I knew that the right house was going to come to us. So that's a major thing with law of attraction for me is if you have the faith that what you're trying to manifest is going to happen, you don't put so much weight on the bad things that happen to your life, and quote unquote bad, right? Another example is, you're getting ready for work, and you're getting your car and you forgot. Like, another example for me, I felt like I was running late for work. Get to my car, forgot my keys, go inside, grab the keys, get to the car, realize you forget your lunch, so you go back in, right? And you might feel like you're getting a little frustrated, right? But then I start driving to work, and of course there's an accident. So, and it happened prior to me getting there. So that it was just an immediate relief of, huh, awesome. Like, that little bit of discomfort this morning could have prevented something really bad from happening. Like, maybe I would have been around that accident. Maybe I wouldn't have been in it, but maybe I would have been there, and it would have, maybe I had anxiety attack or something like that. So it's not having like a carefree attitude, but it's just having like, everything in life is happening for a reason for you to get you where you want to be. And once you kind of give up that, trying to have a grip on controlling everything, you'll feel a lot more free, a lot more positive about things. The negative things that bother a lot of people, you'll just be like, hey, whatever, it's supposed to happen. Something else is coming from this. So that's one thing. I hope that answers your question. I mean, the law of attraction, people get afraid of having negative thoughts, and the law of attraction is if it's going to just totally change everything. And positive thoughts are a lot more powerful than a negative thought. So if you feel yourself having a little bit of negativity, just switch your mindset, and you'll be right back on track. So thanks, Matt, for that question. That's a great question. Here's another question. When I'm having a bad anxiety attack, it usually goes straight to my stomach, where I'm feeling like crap for a while. I can't really talk to anyone, and I usually just watch something on my phone for a distraction. How can I prevent this from happening? And how can I prevent this from getting so severe? So this one hits home hard. I With my anxiety and depression, my stomach, you know, is affected a lot. So your gut. And if you don't know, there is a strong, strong connection between your gut and your brain. I think it's, upwards of 90% of all the neurotransmitters, the feel good hormones are created in your gut. So obviously they go hand in hand. So if your stomach hurts, something's going wrong. So that means that something, maybe you're not. Basically, what I'm saying is if something feels off in your stomach, then there's probably another correlation to your mental health, and vice versa. So if you feel really anxious, maybe you're also going to deal with some IBS or diarrhea or nausea. For me, I deal with a lot of nausea when I'm stressed and anxious, depressed. And there's a couple ways to kind of approach this. You need to attack it from two different angles, right? So you want to kind of try to calm your stomach. We also want to try to calm the anxiety, because they go hand in hand, right? So as far as anxiety goes, right? So the first thing I would do is kind of go into your practices of whatever normally helps you with your anxiety. So for me, it's some deep, deep breaths into your gut, into your stomach, deep breaths into your mouth, extend your gut, your stomach, some deep, deep stomach breathing. And then, also there's a couple of like different like supplements and herbs you can take too, like ginger and peppermint are really, really good at soothing your stomach. Whether it's drinking a ginger ale, which probably isn't the healthiest option, right? But that works. And or doing like a ginger peppermint tea, very helpful. Um, you can combine that with like chamomile, things like that to kind of ease your anxiety and so soothe your mind and your body. Another thing is just start paying attention to what you're eating. What we're eating has a major, major effect on how we feel. You realize that when your stomach hurts, clearly you're not going to feel well either mentally. So, if you're eating a lot of dairy and then you feel like crap, probably should stop avoiding that. You start avoiding, eating those foods, or maybe it's a gluten allergy, or, looking into what insensitivities you might, or yeah, sensitivities you might have to certain foods. That can be really helpful, because if our gut isn't breaking down food properly, we're going to have a hard time creating, the neurotransmitters that are in there as well. So they really go hand in hand. So another thing is getting some good bacteria in your gut. So eating some fermented foods, meaning like sauerkraut, yogurt, some Greek yogurt, fermented foods like kimchi, pickles. Uh, we already said sauerkraut, just kefir. There's a bunch of different things that have natural probiotics in it. That's the main thing you're trying to get. You're trying to get some healthy probiotics, some healthy bacteria to kind of help your gut produce those, feel good hormones. There's a couple other things you can try too. Some supplements. I mean, if you're feeling really nauseous, uh, CBD can be really helpful. They do make a lot of the CBD oils are usually have like a mint peppermint essential oil added to it. So that could be a really good combo. So the CBD and the peppermint is a good combination of, it's going to ease it's going to, calm your stomach down, calm your mind down, and help you kind of push through it. For me too, I mean, if it's legal in your state too, THC can help as well. It's kind of the more psychoactive part of cannabis. It's not for everybody, obviously, if you're not of age or it's not legal in your state. I can't recommend that to you, but it can be helpful, and it's helpful for me. If you're really dealing with, you got that that feels like you got a fist bundled up in your stomach and you just can't, a pit, and you can't get rid of it. Maybe that combination of, CBD, THC, peppermint, like that kind of combination can help too. So there's options out there, but paying attention to that gut and what you're eating and how you feel after you eat certain things is really, really helpful. So don't just keep eating dairy if it keeps making you feel awful and then expect to feel better. I will say from personal experience, there's a few months where I didn't eat any dairy, and also combine that with a gluten-free diet. And I never felt better. Truthfully, that's something I do want to get back to. I've kind of slipped up on my diet, but just from personal experience, doing like elimination diet and trying to figure out what kind of things are negatively affecting you can be really, really beneficial there too. So looking into something like Whole30 isn't a bad idea either. If you don't know what it is, check it out. Basically, you eliminate a bunch of foods for 30 days and you reintroduce them later and you see how you react to them. And that can be a really beneficial way to figure out how your gut and your mental health are correlated. So hopefully that answers your question. That was a little long-winded. Okay, here's another question. How to cope with anxiety on your own when you don't have that one person you always talk to. Now, this is a hard one, because I think one of the best things you can do is to learn how to deal with your anxiety, depression by yourself. Obviously, we all have, hopefully, you have someone that you can talk to and is there for you during these hard times. But if you don't, again, it goes back to giving yourself some self-reflection time to actually dive deep into yourself and see what's going on. So journaling can be really helpful. Um, even talking, so even if you don't have that person, talking to a therapist, talking to someone outside of your circle of friends, things like that. Another great, oh, I'm going to say this. When you say you don't have anyone, like you don't have that one person to talk to, there's always, always, always someone there for you, no matter what. I want, like, do not forget that. Even if you're a perfect stranger or your best friend, there's always someone there. With the power of the internet right now, you can literally hop on Anxious Ambition, the Instagram, right? Look at all the people that like these photos and comment. Reach out to one of them. Everyone that follows this page either knows somebody that's suffering or is suffering themselves. And all these people can relate to you, and they will understand, or at least try to understand what you're going through and have a better idea of it. So if you feel like you don't have that one person, just realize that there's more people out there. There's way more. Reach out to stranger, shoot us a DM. I'll listen to you talk. Um, but again, if you're really, really suffering, you think and it's getting to the point where you're having a hard time living every day and your life is so much harder, professional help is going to be the next step. So I hope that answers your question. Here's next question. Really good question. What should you do if talking to someone doesn't help? So it kind of piggybacks off the last question. Now, I will say this: anxiety, depression, mental illness, it is a holistic approach to recovery and living with this disease, right? Illness, whatever. And you need to treat it that way. So talking with someone can help. It can help, but it's probably not going to be just the only thing you do. You're still going to need to exercise. You're still going to need to take some supplements, to fix deficiencies in your diet. You're going to need to exercise. You're going to need to listen to music. You're going to need to, avoid things that increase your anxiety. Like sugars, things like that. So you can go, talking to someone, if it's not working for you, we have to look at it as chemical, in my opinion. So if talking to someone really isn't helping, one, find a different therapist that could be helpful. But also realizing that maybe you just have, you have a mental illness and you have these deficiencies in serotonin, dopamine, these hormone, these neurotransmitters that really control our mental health. So we need to think of ways we can increase that. So whether that is starting to use some supplementation, some herbs, some different products that can help increase, serotonin, dopamine. And if you try a bunch of supplements, you try exercise, you try all these things, maybe that means you do need to consider medication. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't want you to think that. I personally do take a daily medication. It's labeled an antidepressant. It's a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. So SSRI, you'll hear it be called. It's in the similar category of medications like Zoloft, Prozac, Celexa, Lexapro, things like that, which you may have heard of. And what that does is it does help. It increases the serotonin that remains in your system. So it basically keeps it from leaving, as my interpretation of it. So, that may be the case. You may actually just need a medication. You may, have these, it may be hereditary. You may not be able to fix it with, quote unquote, fix it, right? You may not be able to ever fix something, but, so medication might be just the next step for you, and that's okay. And don't be afraid. There's millions of people that take antidepressants daily to manage their mental illness. And I just want you to know that if you are really, really struggling and, talking to someone isn't helping and you feel like you've exhausted all of your other options, it might be time to see a psychiatrist. And they can help you get on the right path to recovery and feeling better and feeling like more like yourself. I would suggest not going to your general practitioner for this. It's just my opinion because, you're going to have to make a doctor's visit anyway. So you might as well go to someone that specializes in this. You're not going to go to the grocery store to buy a car. They both sell things, but it's not what they specialize in. Like you want to go somewhere that specializes in mental health. So going to a psychiatrist is probably your next step once you go through all those options. And I just want you to know that you shouldn't be afraid. They know what they're doing. They understand that you're there because you're really struggling because typically people go to psychiatrists when they're in a really bad spot and they can't figure it out on their own anymore. So I really hope that answers your question. If you're struggling to figure out what the next step is, talking to someone, whether that's speaking to me or speaking to someone you trust, and just trying to figure out what the next step is, and it's probably going to see a psychiatrist. Next question comes from Andy. Shout out Andy. I'd like to know how depression and anxiety go hand in hand. Like, what's the connection between anxiety and depression? From a science standpoint, I can't totally answer this, but I will say this. I believe that many people that have suffer from anxiety and depression deal with anxiety for so long that it turns into some depression. Think of it this way: if you're dealing with anxiety for a long time, whether it's a couple years, even if it's a couple months, it's becoming really hard to just live a daily life. You're going to start to get depressed, and then that cycle starts, right? So now you're depressed and you're anxious, and they really do go hand in hand. Even from a chemical standpoint, most people believe that serotonin is a big factor with depression, also dopamine, but that's why you see people being treated with anxiety with the use of antidepressants, which also help with serotonin. So the serotonin is kind of going to help with keeping us calm, level-headed, happy, stabilize our mood, which is going to help stabilize our anxiety and depression. So they do go hand in hand. And I think most people that deal with depression also deal with some anxiety. I wouldn't say all people with anxiety deal with depression. If that makes sense. But I mean, if you deal with anxiety for a long time, it's gonna become a depressing thing. I mean, anxiety can really suck, and if you're dealing with it for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, your whole life, you might get depressed over it. So that's, again, typically why the way you treat depression can be helpful in how you deplete your anxiety too. So I hope that helps. I mean, there's definitely a correlation, absolutely a correlation. I think there's a correlation between anxiety and other mental illnesses like ADHD. If you're anxious and then you're also got sporadic thoughts and you can't focus, and you have a hard time getting things done, that's going to increase your anxiety, and they kind of go hand in hand. So there's definitely a correlation between anxiety and depression. Okay, so this next question comes from Alyssa, and this is a great question. What do you feel is the biggest way that someone in college, at the college level, can do to help educate mental health awareness across their community? So basically what she's asking is, how could someone in college help other people and with their mental illness? So there's still some taboo behind the mental illness. I think we all know that. And a goal of all of ours is to kind of continue to end that stigma, the taboo, people are embarrassed to talk about it. And I think the first thing you could really do to help other people is to be open, start being open about your personal experience. Because, even myself in college, I did suffer a lot with anxiety, depression, and I wasn't always sure what it was. And you just kind of feel like you're off and things are, it's just stress, you're nervous, you think it's just because you're at school and it's all the stress of everything. And maybe it is, but it's also could be anxiety and depression. And the first thing I would do is start being vocal about what you suffer with. And I don't mean that in the sense of bragging or gloating or romanticizing mental illness, which I think is unfortunately happening right now, where people are like, oh, I'm depressed, and like as a like term of endearment to like for attention and stuff like that. And you got to realize that if people are going to think that when you post something or talk about it, then screw them. You know, that those people are not who you're trying to communicate with anyway. But what I would do is obviously this in this day and age, social media is huge. So, and most people you interact with on a daily basis probably follow you on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever it is. And what I would do is I would post your story. I'd post your story. I would post, what you deal with, where you're at now. Let people know that they're not alone, because that's the best thing. Because once, Alyssa, she asked the question, if she made a post on Instagram and I was her friend or maybe even just a classmate, and I saw that she posted something and maybe I was starting to deal with stuff and I just didn't know how to label it. I didn't know what was going on. And now I know that, okay, I'm truly not alone in this. Like, she's suffering through this. And maybe I reach out to her on Instagram, or you get one of your family member reaches out to you and they say, hey, I suffer with this too. Like, just so you know, you're not alone. It runs in the family, or things like that. One thing I realized that when I put myself out there is not only did it make me feel better, which, if you're struggling right now or you struggle with a mental illness, talking about it and taking off that mask and trying to hide it anymore can be just so liberating. So what I would do is, make that post, you'll see all these people reach out to you, and it's like, wow, you're making an impact, because there's definitely friends and family of yours that have not, that you don't know are suffering. They'll come out and talk to you about it. So, doing that. Also, I know Alyssa actually does have a support group at her college. So that is amazing. We didn't have anything at my school. And if we did, I wasn't aware of it. So it wasn't marketed correctly, or wasn't, super public knowledge. And, wearing t-shirts and wearing apparel that shows that, supports mental illness. And, the main thing is just, let's stop making it so damn taboo and end the stigma around it. Like, you can wear a shirt that says, you're not alone on it, like mine, or Anxious Ambition, or you've got these, other companies that are promoting suicide prevention, and you're making more of an impact than you think by wearing those clothes, because you never know who you're going to walk through, pass up in the hallway, who's going to see that post and not say anything to you, but they saw it and they're going to be like, they have that respect. It makes them feel better. And that's the best thing I think I would do. Start talking about it. If you want to be an advocate for it, be an advocate for it. Truly advocate for mental health awareness. Wear it on your shirt, talk about it in class, talk about it on social media. It's going to make an impact. So that's what I would do. Every one of you guys is on the internet right now. So putting yourself out there is going to be helpful for many, many, many people. All right. Next question. What is your recommendation for someone who is struggling with mental health, who is nervous/anxious? What is the first steps you think they should take to get help? It's a tough question. I mean, the first step you should take, I'll tell you what the first step shouldn't be. I would say don't just go straight to your general doctor. Now, that may not be an answer people want to hear, but if you're just kind of learning that you may be suffering with anxiety, depression, I would say first thing you should do is talk to a therapist, because they are going to help you understand what's going on. They're going to help you, maybe it's situational. Maybe something bad really happened and you're just in a really depressed spot. And maybe it's not a mental illness per se where you need to be medicated immediately. There's people that you go to the doctor and you say, hey, I'm not feeling well. I'm feeling kind of anxious. Boom, instantly give you a prescription. And I've said it once, said it again, nothing wrong with medication. But I think that most people would happily say that the last thing they want to do is take medication. So let's start with the other stuff first. Talk to a therapist. Now, if you're going to sit there and say, well, I don't want to talk to a therapist, I can't afford a therapist, it's bullshit. There's options, 100% options. If you go to church, there's probably a free counselor. There's sliding scales. The therapist I went to charged me a lower rate because of the financial situation we were in. There's always an option. There's online services, BetterHelp, things like that. You need to talk to someone that's not just, people might say, oh, I talk to my friends. They're like my therapist. Well, the problem is they're too close to the situation. You want to speak to someone that has, is separate from the situation, that will look at, listen to what you're saying and not have any bias at all. So therapy to me is your number one choice to get started with seeking help. I would start doing that. And then obviously, from the steps of infant stages of, therapy to the last stage of like going to see a psychiatrist, in between there, you should be, exercising, meditating, trying some supplements, mindfulness. There's, essential oils. The list goes on and on and on. Like try all the natural stuff first, because you may find something that helps you. And why not be able to live a life that you're not medicated and, be able to, feel good. And again, this isn't to get people to not take medication, because like I've said many, many times, I take medication, but I exhausted all my options first, because the last thing you want to do is start taking a medication and think like, damn, did I really need this? Did I need this? Would I've been okay with, maybe you were just suffering with a magnesium deficiency and taking a daily dose of magnesium would have solved your problem. And I say this because there's things you can check on your body first, because our body wants to be in homeostasis to live, so we can live a happier life. So getting your blood tested at the doctor isn't even a bad idea. Look deep inside your body, because something could just be wrong. Something could be off that we can balance and help our bodies and mind be just happier. So I hope that answers your question. Let's see. What has been your biggest help during your journey with mental health and anxiety? The answer is 100% anxious ambition. 100%. Obviously, this channel and podcast and business, if you want to call it that, it's just, to me, it's a community. I create this as a community. It has been so helpful for me because I've been able to help others, and it helps me connect with other people that are also suffering. Like, our saying is you're not alone, because it's the truth. And being able to connect with other people has been so, so powerful. And the biggest thing like just comes into mind is when I went on the internet, Facebooks, and all the social media, and posted about what I struggle with. And that was such a huge relief. My closest friends, family, they knew about what I was going through, but I never went in detail. I wasn't trying to have a pity party when I'm, in public and stuff like that. But it's like, by posting that online, damn, like I felt so good. Like I had, aunts and uncles and cousins and friends and people that I barely talk to anymore reach out and show their support. And just like I talked about earlier, it is so relieving and liberating to embrace what you're going through instead of hiding from it anymore. Because once you embrace the fact that, anxiety is going to be a part of your life, you stop fighting it as much. You start realizing, how can I deal with this, instead of just trying to fight it and make it just disappear every time, because there's a chance that it may just never go away. So that's the main thing. And then therapy as well. Just thinking of some of the highlights. The first thing was kind of being open about it. The second thing was definitely seeing a therapist, seeing a psychiatrist, all major parts. Again, it goes back to, it's holistic. It is completely a holistic approach. There's not one thing, in my opinion, that's going to help you. There's not one thing that, is going to be like the thing that's going to make you feel perfect. It's going to be a combination of all these things that are going to help you feel better. So it's not to discourage you. It's just to realize, the sooner you realize that it's not one thing, the sooner you can start building that toolbox of anxiety tools that help you get through it, whether it's medication, it's daily meditation, it's exercise, it's eating the right food. It's a combination of all these things. But the biggest thing to do to start is just embrace it, tell someone about it. Another thing you could do too, like if you don't want to do social media, not saying you have to, is write a letter to someone. Write a letter to your parents, write a letter to your loved one, write a letter to someone that truly cares about you, that will listen to you, and just get all those thoughts out of your mind that you're thinking about, whether it's the anxiety, what it's doing to you, how you feel on a daily basis, why you think you need help. Because you got to realize that some of these people that are in your life to help you don't understand what you're going through. So the more you can do to help them understand, the better it is, because what you don't want to happen is you seek help and your support system doesn't understand, so they don't know how to help, and they don't know how serious it could be. So vocalizing that, sometimes it can be hard to just physically talk about it. So that's why I made the recommendation of making a post or writing a letter. Both can be really, really great ways to kind of start getting you on the right track to living a life where anxiety just doesn't completely control your life. Okay, it looks like that was actually our last question. I am so, so thankful for all the support that we've gotten, over the last, month or so after relaunching the podcast. Like I said before, this podcast helps me out too. So I'm very, very grateful for everyone who continues to watch it, support it, subscribes to the channel, follows us on Instagram, purchases some apparel. It all means so, so much to me. And I just want to say thank you. And if you know someone that's struggling, the best way you could support this channel is just sharing it. It's not buying something, it's sharing it, it's liking it, it's commenting on it. It's the more people that engage with the content, the more people see it. And this isn't because of my ego, it's because I want more people to find this community of people. Every one of you guys that follows my channel are fucking awesome. And I love all of you guys. And this community is so strong. And I just want more and more people to grow into this community and just continue on this journey of life with each other, and realizing that we are going to absolutely refuse to give up on our dreams because of some shit like anxiety, depression, mental illness in general. Many, many, many successful people in this world are suffering and have suffered. And you are going to be that person as well. You're going to make it through. You're going to do what you want to do and not let this bullshit stop you from achieving what you want. So again, thank you. Thank you so much. If you guys have any questions you want me to answer, feel free to DM me on Instagram, Anxious Ambition, Facebook. You can email me as well. Like I said, justin@anxiousambition.com. And once again, guys, thank you for listening. Appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Anxious Ambition podcast. You can find us on all podcast platforms. Follow us on Instagram @AnxiousAmbition. You can actually watch this podcast over on YouTube. Lastly, check out our website, anxiousambition.com, where we have all of our merch, and a portion of every sale is donated to NAMI, and it helps support the individuals and their families who are suffering from mental illness. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, take it easy.
Anxious.
Ambition.